My name's Kyle Bennett. I'm 36, born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. HVAC technician by trade. Nothing fancy, but I know how to keep people warm in the winter and cool in the summer. I clock in, I clock out, I don't complain. I'm the type of guy who shows up when he says he will, brings his own tools, and doesn't overcharge. You need help moving a couch? I'm there. You need someone to fix your mom's AC unit for free because she's on Social Security? I'm your guy. I've always been like that. Not the loudest one in the room. Not the flashiest. Just solid. Dependable. And maybe that's why what happened to me hits so hard. Because when you spend years doing everything right, you don't expect the person closest to you to look at you like you're nothing. I met Rachel when I was 26. We were both taking night classes at Jefferson Community College. She was studying business administration. I was doing my HVAC certification. She had that I'm going somewhere energy, always dressed sharp, even for class, like she had something to prove. I was the opposite, jeans, boots, flannel shirts, minding my own. But something about her pulled me in. She was sharp, sarcastic, had this loud laugh that turned heads, and somehow, she decided I was worth her time. At first, I couldn't believe it. She was the kind of girl guys wrote DMs to. The kind who got free drinks at bars. But for some reason, she liked how steady I was. Said I made her feel safe. We started dating, and it just felt easy. I'd pick her up after her job at the leasing office. We'd get burgers at Five Guys, sit in my old Ford Ranger, and talk about life, dreams, fears, everything in between. We got married after 3 years. Nothing big, just a small ceremony in a park with a food truck and a cheap DJ who played 2000s hits. But I remember thinking, this is it. This is the rest of my life. And I was fine with that. I liked our simple life. We bought a little house just outside Fern Creek, 2-bedroom, nothing special, but it had a fenced yard and a big front porch. I fixed it up on weekends. She decorated it with those live, laugh, love signs and throw pillows with phrases like, bless this mess. For the first few years, things were good. I'd come home, and she'd meet me at the door, tell me about her day. She was working as a receptionist at a real estate firm, trying to get her license. I was grinding away, taking extra HVAC jobs on Saturdays to pay off the mortgage faster. We had date nights, Red Robin, sometimes a movie. I'd rub her feet while she watched those murder mystery shows on Netflix. She'd pack my lunch some mornings, leave a sticky note that said, have a good day, babe. But slowly, quietly, things started to shift. I can't tell you the exact moment it happened. It wasn't loud. It was gradual, like one of those slow leaks in a pipe behind the wall. You don't notice it until the drywall soaked through. She got her license and started selling houses. At first, I was proud. She was killing it, hosting open houses, getting commissions, dressing up in heels and blazers. I cheered her on, bought her a new laptop when her old one crashed, set up a home office for her in the guest room, gave her space. But somewhere in that climb, she started looking at me differently, like I wasn't moving fast enough, like I was the old version of her life. She stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped waiting for me to eat dinner, started going out more, networking events, wine nights with the girls, team dinners. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I'd sit on that couch alone, cold beer in hand, scrolling through ESPN, waiting to hear the garage door open. Most nights, it didn't open until late. I'd ask how the event was, and she'd say, it's exhausting being around people all day. I don't want to talk. So I'd just nod and say, okay, and go back to whatever game was on. I try to bring her back into our world. Suggested we go back to that burger spot. She rolled her eyes and said, Kyle, we're not kids anymore. I mentioned a weekend trip to Nashville. She said she had a showing on Saturday. I said I missed how we used to laugh. She said I was being dramatic. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't abusive. I wasn't distant. I was just there. And apparently, that was the problem. You know the worst part? The silence. Not the yelling. Not the fights. The silence. The way she stopped looking at me. The way she'd be texting someone during dinner, laughing at her phone. And when I asked what was funny, she'd just say nothing. Some nights, I'd lay in bed next to her, and she'd inch away like I was radiating heat she didn't want. I didn't beg. I didn't push. I just absorbed it. Like drywall. Just kept taking it in. My friends noticed. My buddy James, the guy I work with, pulled me aside one day and said, "Man, you okay? You look like you've been living in a fog." I just told him work's been crazy. He didn't buy it, but he let it go. Looking back now, I think part of me knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Because once you admit that the person you love doesn't love you back anymore, it's like the ground under you disappears. But even after all that, the distance, the cold shoulder, the missed dinners, I still tried. I bought her favorite takeout one night, Olive Garden, chicken Alfredo, and those breadsticks she used to inhale. I lit a candle, put on some music, try to make it feel like a date night. She walked in, looked at the table, and said, "What's this?" I said, "I just wanted to have dinner. Just you and me." She sat down, scrolled through her phone for 5 minutes, picked at her food, then said, and I swear to God this is word for word, "If you want to leave, go ahead. I'm not holding you here." Then she laughed. Not a giggle, not a nervous laugh. A real, casual, smug laugh. Like she just dropped the mic and walked off stage. That's when something in me cracked. But not in the way you'd expect. I didn't yell. I didn't slam my fist on the table. I didn't throw the food across the room. I just looked at her. And in my head, I heard this voice, clear as day, say, "She doesn't care if you go. So maybe it's time you do." I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I just stood up, cleared my plate, and said, "Thanks for dinner." That night, I slept on the couch. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't feel like I belonged in that bed anymore. The next morning, before she woke up, I left the house with a backpack, my work tools, and a single thought in my head. If she wants me gone, she's about to find out what that really feels like. You ever have that moment where something inside you just shuts off? That was me, the morning after Rachel laughed in my face and told me, "If you want to leave, go ahead." No fight, no begging, just cold dismissal. And something in me, it broke, or maybe it healed. I honestly don't know which. I got up before the sun came up. House was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to feel peaceful, but now just felt heavy. I made coffee like I always do. Black, no sugar. Didn't eat. Couldn't eat. I sat at the kitchen counter, stared at that stupid "Bless this mess" sign she hung above the pantry, and realized I was the mess. And she was already done with me. So I grabbed my work boots, my Milwaukee tool bag, tossed some clothes into a backpack, 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, my toothbrush, my electric razor, and left. No dramatic note. No goodbye speech. Just walked out the front door while she was still sleeping in the bed I bought, under the roof I built, in the life I held together with both hands for years. I didn't even slam the door. Just pulled it shut slow and quiet, like I was sneaking away from a memory. I drove straight to my buddy James's place on the other side of town. James is the kind of guy who always has a cold beer in the fridge and a clean guest room, even if he never makes his bed. He opened the door half awake, hair messed up, wearing some faded Cincinnati Bengals tee, and said, "You good, man?" I said I left. He didn't ask for details. Just stepped aside and said, "Come in." That's the kind of friend you need in moments like that. The ones who don't make you explain your pain right away. They just give you space and coffee. That day at work, I didn't say much. Climbed into attics, fixed 2 broken units, replaced a condenser fan. My hands were busy, but my head was in a different world. I kept thinking about how she used to call me during lunch just to hear my voice. How she used to save me the last breadstick when we went out. Now she couldn't even pretend to care if I stayed or left. Around 3 p.m., I logged into our bank account from my phone. She hadn't touched it yet. I transferred half the money into a new account I'd set up months ago when things first started feeling off. Call it paranoia, call it survival instinct, but thank God I did it. Next, I froze the joint credit card. I wasn't about to let her go on a Target or Ulta shopping spree with my hard-earned money while pretending I didn't exist. I didn't touch the mortgage. I still had some decency, but I wasn't going to be her ATM either. Then I logged into our shared Amazon account, deleted my info, changed the password. Same with Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, all of it. Not out of spite, just out of clarity. I wasn't part of her life anymore, so she wasn't going to be part of mine. That night, back at James's house, I couldn't sleep. His guest bed was too soft, smelled like old cologne and laundry detergent, and my thoughts wouldn't shut up. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow, and kept replaying her voice in my head. "If you want to leave, go ahead." The way she said it, like I was just background noise. Like I was one of those clearance sale candles she kept in the guest bathroom, once loved, now forgotten. But I didn't cry. Not that night. Not even once. I just felt numb. Like I'd finally run out of gas after driving on E for years. 2 days passed. No text. No call. Nothing. Then on the third day, she finally messaged me. It was a simple text. So you're really just gone? No, I miss you. No, can we talk? Just those words. Like I was supposed to feel guilty for doing what she dared me to do. I didn't answer. An hour later. Is this your way of punishing me? I still didn't answer. Then she called. I let it ring. Then again. I watched it vibrate across the nightstand. By midnight, I got a final text. You're being dramatic. This is stupid. And maybe it was. But it was also real. The next morning, I called my boss and asked if I could shift to more overtime work for a while, just to keep myself busy. He said, sure, no problem. That's the thing about being a guy like me. Nobody ever expects you to fall apart. They just think you're made of duct tape and diesel fuel. But I was falling apart. Quietly. I'd sit in the work van during lunch breaks and scroll through old photos on my phone, beach trips to Gulf Shores, Rachel making pancakes in that oversized Kentucky Wildcats hoodie, the one I bought her for her birthday. Gone. All of it. Gone in the silence of a woman who stopped choosing me long before I realized. One afternoon, James and I were on a job site replacing a heat pump when he looked at me and said, you ever think about talking to someone? I said, like a therapist? He nodded. Ain't no shame in it, man. My sister goes every week. Says it helps. I shrugged it off. But that night, I Googled therapists in Jeffersonville, found a small place with solid reviews, and booked an appointment for the next week. First session, I sat in the parking lot for 15 minutes debating whether I should even go in. But I did. The therapist, middle-aged woman named Allison, listened without judgment. I told her everything. How Rachel changed. How I felt invisible. How it didn't even feel like a divorce. Just like I vanished and no one noticed. She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. You didn't leave her. You stopped staying in a place you weren't welcomed. That hit hard. Real hard. The next few weeks, I started putting pieces of myself back together. I went to the gym. Nothing crazy. Just treadmill, some weights, trying to shake off the heavy. Started eating better. Cut back on the beer. Wrote in a notebook every night, even if it was just a few lines. James noticed. One night, while we were grilling out in his backyard, he said, you're starting to look like you again. And I was. Slowly. Rachel, meanwhile, kept texting every couple of days. Sometimes she was angry. You're a coward. Other times, sad. I miss you, Kyle. And sometimes desperate. Are you with someone else? I never replied. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I didn't want to reopen a door that she slammed shut with laughter. It's funny how silence feels like revenge to people who thought you'd never leave. She expected me to beg, to chase, to cry, but I didn't. I just packed my bag, froze the account, changed the password, and walked away. And I think that was the first time she realized. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't looking for anything. That's the honest truth. After everything with Rachel, I wasn't trying to find love again or even flirt. I was still piecing myself back together. Still waking up in the middle of the night with that tight feeling in my chest. Still checking my phone out of habit, like maybe she'd sent something that wasn't cold or manipulative, something real. But it never came. I was just existing, going to work, crashing at James's place, hitting the gym 3 days a week like my therapist suggested, even if I barely did more than 30 minutes on the treadmill. One Saturday, about a month after I left the house, I was at the Ace Hardware over in New Albany, just across the river from Louisville. I needed a new drill bit and figured I'd finally fix James's backache since he was letting me stay rent-free. It was a small chore, something to keep my hands busy. I'm walking down the aisle near the electrical section, comparing bit sizes, when I hear a voice behind me go, Kyle? Kyle Bennett. I turn, and there she is, Madeline Carter. Or Maddie, as we used to call her back in the day. She was wearing jeans, a gray flannel shirt, and a messy ponytail. No makeup, no drama, just real. We used to work together at Hensley's Heating and Cooling about 5 or 6 years ago. She was one of the only women in the shop, and she could hold her own with the guys. Smart, sharp tongue, always had her coffee in a stainless steel tumbler that said, "Don't talk to me until this is empty." I remember we used to joke around during lunch breaks. She'd always bring weird protein bars and make fun of me for eating gas station hot dogs. I blinked a little stunned. Maddie? Wow, it's been forever. She smiled. It has. You still fixing broken A/CS and saving grandmas from heat stroke. I chuckled. Guilty. We talked for a few minutes, nothing heavy. Just catching up. She'd left Hensley's and was now working part-time at a local hardware distributor while raising her son, Ethan, 8 years old. She'd split from her ex about 3 years ago. No drama in her voice when she said it, just facts. Like someone who'd been through the storm already and didn't need to relive it. Eventually, I told her I'd moved out recently. Didn't get into the whole Rachel situation. Just said things didn't work out. She gave me a look like she understood more than I was saying. Then she said, well, if you ever want to grab a burger and not talk about broken relationships, let me know. I took her number. Didn't think I'd actually call. But that night, after sitting in James's living room watching reruns of Pawn Stars and trying not to feel like a failure, I looked at my phone and texted her. Burgers still on the table? She replied in 2 seconds. Only if it comes with fries. We met up 2 nights later at Bun's Burgers, a local spot with old license plates on the walls and milkshakes thick enough to bend a spoon. We didn't dress up. I wore jeans and a Henley shirt. She had on a hoodie and sneakers. No pressure, no weird tension. Just 2 people eating fries and talking like time hadn't passed. And I'll tell you something, she didn't ask about Rachel once. Didn't poke, didn't pry. She asked how I was doing, me, not my marriage. And then she told me about her kid, how he wants to be a firefighter, and how she just taught him how to ride a bike without training wheels. We laughed, really laughed for the first time in a while. And when we got up to leave, she hugged me. Not romantic, just real. And that stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other a few more times. Nothing heavy. Coffee after work. Walks around Cherokee Park. One night, we hit up this local bowling alley, 10 pinstrike and grill, and she destroyed me. I'm talking 167 to 102. She was ruthless. Call me Grandpa Hands the whole night because I couldn't get my spin right. She made me laugh. But more than that, she made me feel normal. Not broken. Not like some abandoned husband. Just Kyle. One night, I opened up and told her about the night Rachel laughed when I tried to have dinner with her. About how that one sentence, if you want to leave, go ahead, just emptied me out. Maddie didn't interrupt. Didn't try to one-up me with her own stories. She just listened. Then she said something simple. Sometimes the worst pain comes from people who don't even know they're hurting you. Or worse, they do, and they just don't care. And I realized she got it. She really got it. She wasn't trying to save me. And I wasn't trying to move on too fast. We were just 2 people with some bruises, trying to breathe again. The thing is, I never told Rachel about Maddie. I didn't have to. Rachel had already let me go the moment she laughed. But I'll admit, a small part of me wondered what Rachel would think if she saw me now. Actually smiling, eating curly fries with someone who looked at me like I mattered. I wasn't falling in love. Not yet. But I was finally feeling like I could again. One evening, we were walking back to her car in the parking lot of Kroger. Of all places, we'd grabbed ice cream and sparkling water like 2 teenagers. And she said out of nowhere, you know, you seem lighter now than when we ran into each other at Ace. I looked at her, kind of surprised. Yeah. She nodded. Yeah, you're still carrying stuff, I can tell. But it's not dragging you down as much. That meant more than she probably realized. Because it was true. I still had nights where I'd sit up in bed, wondering what the hell happened to the woman I married. I still missed parts of Rachel, or maybe just a version of her that existed before things got cold. I still felt the sting when I thought about how fast she stopped trying. But for the first time, that sting wasn't everything. There was room for something else now. For conversations that didn't feel like walking on eggshells. For laughter that wasn't forced. For moments that didn't feel like performances. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something real again. Not perfect, not dramatic, just real. There's something strange about silence. Most people can't handle it. After I left the house and Rachel sent those first few cold texts, the "you're being dramatic, is this your way of punishing me?" kind of messages, I didn't reply. Not once. Not because I was playing a game or trying to make her suffer. I just didn't see the point. She told me to go. She laughed, and I went. But what people never expect is for you to actually stay gone. At first, she stayed quiet for a while too. Probably assumed I'd come crawling back once the loneliness kicked in. Thought I'd sleep on James's couch for a few days, get tired of microwaved food and man-to-man small talk, and come knocking like a lost puppy. But I didn't. And about 3 weeks after I left, the silence must have gotten loud for her. It was a Wednesday night. I had just finished fixing a ductless mini-split unit for a little old lady in Middletown who baked me banana bread as a thank you. I was back at James's, sitting on the back porch with a cold beer, boots off, just listening to the cicadas. That's when my phone lit up. Rachel. She texted. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I stared at the message for a second. Not in anger. Just surprise. Not because she finally broke her silence, but because even now, she still didn't get it. She thought I left to prove a point. What she didn't understand is that I left because I'd finally accepted hers. I didn't answer. 15 minutes later, she sent another. So this is how you handle things now? You just disappear? Nope. Still no reply. A few hours passed. Then came the real one. The one that peeled back a bit of that cold shell. You could have at least said goodbye. That one made my chest tighten, I won't lie. Not because I felt guilty, but because it was the first message that didn't feel like a power move. It felt human. Like maybe, just maybe, she was starting to feel the weight of what she did. I didn't reply to that one either. The next morning, I woke up to 4 more texts. You're seriously ignoring me now? Is this because of what I said that night? It was just a joke, Kyle. This is childish. I put the phone down and made coffee. James walked into the kitchen in his boxers and said, She texting you again? I nodded. She's starting to unravel. He chuckled. Silence is a hell of a mirror, man. That weekend, I went to a farmer's market in St. Matthews with Maddie. Nothing big, just something to do on a Saturday morning. We grabbed iced coffee, she bought some local honey, and we ended up sitting on a bench watching this kid try to juggle oranges while his mom cheered him on. It was peaceful, the kind of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I snapped a picture of the little stand we were sitting at, didn't even include us in the frame. Just a table with sunflowers and a hand-painted fresh jam $5 sign. I posted it on Instagram with the caption, starting to feel like myself again. I wasn't thinking about Rachel when I posted it, but it didn't matter. She saw it. How do I know? Because 2 hours later, I got a message that just said, Wow, you've moved on that fast. And here's the thing, I hadn't. Not really. Not fully. But Rachel didn't get to say anything about fast when she had emotionally moved on from me months before I ever packed that bag. Still, I didn't bite. Didn't argue. Didn't feed the drama. I just put my phone on Do Not Disturb and focused on Maddie talking about how Ethan was learning multiplication and thought 6 by 6 was a million. The next few days, Rachel doubled down. First came the anger. You're with her, aren't you? Figures. She always had a thing for you. You're disgusting. Then came the guilt trips. You're destroying everything we built. Do vows mean nothing to you? I gave you 7 years, Kyle. But what she never acknowledged, not once, the way she laughed at me when I was trying to save our marriage. The way she rolled her eyes when I asked for a little time together. The way she shrugged off my pain like it was an inconvenience. See, Rachel was realizing something now. Something real. And it was eating at her. It wasn't just that I left, it's that I stayed gone. She could have handled a fight. She was used to battles, yelling, crying, slamming doors. But this, the cold silence, the fact that I didn't block her, didn't scream, didn't beg, just walked away, that messed with her. And I think, deep down, it made her feel small. Irrelevant. I was taking care of myself. I was seeing someone who treated me like I mattered. I was slowly rebuilding. And she was still stuck in the same house, probably pouring wine at 8 p.m., scrolling through my Instagram stories, wondering how the hell she went from he'll never leave to he doesn't even care. One night, around midnight, she called. I let it ring. Then she called again. I let it go to voicemail. She left one. Her voice cracked halfway through. I didn't mean what I said that night, Kyle. I was mad. I was stressed. I thought you'd fight for me. I didn't think you'd actually walk away. And there it was. That last sentence. I didn't think you'd actually walk away. She said it like she still didn't get it. Like walking away was some wild, unpredictable reaction, like she hadn't been slowly pushing me toward the door for months. I listened to the voicemail once, then deleted it. I wasn't mad. Honestly, I felt a little sorry for her. Because that's the thing about taking people for granted. When they finally leave, you start realizing all the quiet things they did for you. The tire rotations, the meal preps, the late night talks, the showing up, the being there, every day, without asking for anything back but respect. And once it's gone, it doesn't echo. It vanishes. Rachel had made her choice when she stopped choosing me. And I'd made mine when I finally chose myself. You ever realize someone's only checking in on you because they noticed you stopped checking on them? That's what started happening with Rachel. It wasn't love. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't some grand epiphany. It was fear. Fear that I was doing just fine without her. And honestly, that's what cut her. When I was hurting, when I was begging for connection, she had better things to do. Real estate showings, wine nights, networking with some guy named Logan from her office who always commented "Fire Boss Lady" on her Instagram. I'd notice it. I'd see the way she'd smile at her phone when his name popped up. I never said a word. I just watched, and I stored it. But now that she saw I wasn't chasing anymore, suddenly I became interesting again. That's how it works with people like Rachel. They crave attention, not connection. And the second the spotlight shifts, they panic. About 5 weeks after I left, the messages got longer. Less angry, more emotional. Stuff like, "I keep walking past your side of the bed and expecting to see you there." Or, "I made chili last night, you're kind." I cried when I realized I didn't have anyone to eat it with. And then the real one. "I think I ruined the best thing in my life. And I don't know how to fix it." And I'll be honest with you, I didn't hate reading that one. Not because I wanted her back, but because for the first time in years, she finally sounded real. No pride, no sarcasm. No, "You're too sensitive." Just a woman sitting alone in a house that used to be a home, realizing how much she chipped away at it with every careless word. But I still didn't reply. And that's when she started slipping. One night, I was at James's place. We were watching the Bengals get smoked by the Chiefs when my phone rang. "Rachel." Again. I sent it to voicemail. 2 minutes later, another call. James looked over at me and said, "She's unraveling, huh?" I shrugged. She's starting to realize silence isn't temporary. That night, she left another voicemail. Slurred, emotional, all over the place. "I don't get it. I thought we were just going through a phase. You weren't supposed to leave. What's so special about this new chick, huh? What does she have that I didn't give you?" I sat there in the dark for a long time after listening to that one. And I finally said it out loud, mostly to myself. Respect. That's what she gave me. It wasn't about sex. It wasn't about looks. It was about being seen, being spoken to like I mattered, being listened to without sighs, eye rolls, or that cold little smirk Rachel used to give me when she thought I was being too emotional. See, when someone is emotionally starving, they'll settle for crumbs for a while. They'll tell themselves it's just stress, or they're tired, they don't mean it. But once you taste peace, you can't go back. And I had peace now. I go to work, fix people's HVAC units, get sweaty, dirty, tired, and I'd come home not to a cold silence or a snarky comment, but to James's dumb jokes and the smell of grilled chicken on the back deck. Or on better nights, I'd go to Maddie's place. We'd eat spaghetti while her son, Ethan, told me about dinosaurs and how he thinks his teacher might secretly be an alien. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't explosive. It was just real. Meanwhile, Rachel was spiraling in the quiet. She started posting weird stuff on social media. Cryptic quotes like, "Funny how people switch up on you once they get attention." Or, "Don't lose a real one trying to chase temporary highs." And she tagged no one, but everyone knew who it was about. Mutual friends started texting me. "Hey man, everything okay? Rachel's posting some heavy stuff." I just reply, "I'm good. Hope she is too." I didn't owe anyone explanations. Not anymore. Then one Friday night, I stopped by a gas station to grab a Gatorade after the gym. As I'm walking out, guess who I see sitting in her car, parked near the side? Rachel. Windows down, music playing low, makeup smudged like she'd been crying. She saw me, sat up straight, waved like nothing was weird. I nodded politely, gave her a simple "hey," and kept walking. She called out, "Kyle, wait." I paused, turned halfway. "Yeah." She stood up, walked toward me. Her voice was shaky. I was hoping I'd run into you. I don't know what's happening to us. I looked her right in the eye and said, "We're not happening anymore, Rachel." She blinked like I'd slapped her. "So that's it? You just gave up?" And this is the part that people watching will feel in their gut. I said it quietly, but clearly. "You gave up a long time ago. I just finally noticed." She didn't respond, just stood there with this hollow look in her eyes, like she wanted to cry, scream, hug me, slap me all at once. But she didn't do any of it. She just said, "You're really not coming back, are you?" I shook my head. "I stopped waiting for you to care. And now I don't need you to." And I got in my truck and drove off. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't lay in bed replaying the moment. I just breathed. It was like closing the final chapter of a book I should have put down years ago. And from that day forward, the call stopped. The text slowed. Rachel was still there, floating in the background, but her grip on me was gone. I had finally stepped out of the storm. And for the first time in years, the air was clear. There's a weird thing that happens when you finally stop living in survival mode. The silence doesn't feel scary anymore. It starts feeling peaceful. That was me. A few months after I walked out of that house and left Rachel in her echo chamber of sarcasm and regret, I started noticing the quiet moments again, and not the lonely kind. I mean the ones that feel like home, even if you're not home. Maddie was a big part of that. She never tried to fix me, never forced deep conversations, never asked for a label or posted cryptic couple photos. She was just there, consistently, calmly, like a safe place in a world that used to feel like a war zone. Some nights we'd sit on her back patio after Ethan went to bed, drinking cheap wine out of mismatched glasses, watching lightning bugs blink across her yard. No background music, no small talk, just to fill space. She never felt the need to talk over silence. And that was rare. One night in particular sticks with me. I had a brutal day. Middle of July, 97 degrees, 3 full HVAC jobs in a row, including a full system install a house in Shelbyville, where the crawl space was full of spider webs and one very pissed off raccoon. I came home drenched in sweat and exhaustion. She texted, "You alive?" I replied with a photo of my shirt, soaked through. She said, "I'll make dinner. Come by." When I got there, she was still in joggers and a tank top, hair in a bun, no makeup. She handed me a cold beer without saying a word and just gave me a long hug in the doorway. You know the kind where someone really hugs you. Not a pat, not a lean, but a full no-rush hug? That. And I didn't even realize how much I needed it until I exhaled into her shoulder like I'd been holding my breath for weeks. She didn't ask about work, didn't quiz me on feelings. She just made a grilled chicken salad, put on that 70s show, and we ate on the couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't Instagram-worthy, but it was real. After dinner, I helped Ethan with a book report he didn't want to write on Charlotte's Web. Kid was convinced Charlotte was way too chill about dying, and honestly, he wasn't wrong. Once he was in bed, Maddie turned to me and said, "You smile different now." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" She shrugged. "You used to smile like it hurt, like you were forcing it so people wouldn't ask questions." And man, that hit, because it was true. Back when I was with Rachel, I smiled out of obligation. Holidays, birthdays, dinners with friends, I'd smile to keep the peace, to hide the slow burn inside me. But it was performative, like flexing a muscle I didn't even feel anymore. Now, it came out of nowhere. Sitting in a kitchen, helping a third grader describe how a spider showed empathy was enough to make me laugh without faking it. So yeah, I smile different now, and it felt good to hear someone say it out loud. Around that time, I moved out of James's house and got a small apartment in Jeffersontown. Nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, carpeted floors, noisy AC unit, but it was mine. I bought secondhand furniture from Facebook Marketplace, picked out my own dishes, stocked my fridge with the stuff I liked. I didn't have to explain why I bought 2 types of mustard or why I wanted 6 pillows on the bed. It was peaceful, and I was starting to feel whole again. Maddie came over sometimes. She didn't move in. We weren't official, but she'd bring Ethan by for movie nights. We'd make popcorn, pile blankets on the floor, and fall asleep during The Incredibles or Home Alone even when it wasn't Christmas. One afternoon, I picked Ethan up from school because Maddie was stuck in traffic. He hopped in my truck, tossed his backpack in the back seat like he owned the place, and said, "Mom says you're the only guy she's ever liked more over time." That floored me. Not because I needed praise, but because for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to impress anyone, and someone still liked me, just for who I was. Sweat, jokes, scars, and all. Rachel never got that version of me. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't value it. But Maddie? She saw it, and she respected it. And here's the wild part. I wasn't in love yet. I wasn't rushing towards some Hallmark ending. I still had moments where I'd wake up and briefly wonder what Rachel was doing. Still had random memories sneak up on me. Her singing off-key while cleaning, or how she used to wear my flannels around the house. But the difference was, those memories didn't hurt anymore. They didn't sting. They didn't haunt. They were just memories. And that, my friend, is when you know you're healing, when the past doesn't ask you to come back. One night, I was driving home from a late install job in Shepherdsville, sun setting, windows down, Garth Brooks playing low on the radio. My phone buzzed. It was Maddie. I answered on speaker. "Hey," I said. "Hey," she replied. "Just wanted to say something." "What's up?" She paused, then said, "I'm glad you left." I didn't answer right away. Just swallowed hard, kept my hands on the wheel. "You deserve better," she added. That moment right there, that was everything. Because when Rachel saw my quiet, calm love, she mocked it. And when Maddie saw it, she valued it. Not for what it looked like, not for the money or the image or the social media likes, but because it was real. That night, I sat in my apartment, sipping a beer on the balcony, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt free. There's a moment in every story like this. The moment they finally see you happy without them. Not pretending. Not faking. Not posting selfies with a fake smile in front of a bar mirror. I mean really happy. At peace. Calm. Glowing in a way they never expected you to glow again. Especially not with someone else. For me, that moment came at Kevin's backyard barbecue. Kevin's a buddy of mine from the HVAC company. Every summer, he throws a big cookout at his place in Lexington, invites old co-workers, some neighbors, a few people from his wife's book club. Nothing fancy, just burgers, hot dogs, cornhole, country music playing on low, kids running around with water balloons, and that one uncle who gets a little too drunk by 4 p.m. Maddie had never met most of these folks, but she was down to come. She wore this soft blue sundress and pulled her hair up in a messy knot. I remember thinking she looked exactly like Comfort feels. Ethan was with his dad that weekend, so it was just the two of us. I brought some beers and a tray of smoked wings I'd made that morning. We pulled up to Kevin's place, walked through the side gate, and instantly got swarmed by "Hey man," and back slaps, and "Is this the girl you told us about?" Maddie handled it like a champ. Cracked jokes, asked people questions, made friends with the wives. She wasn't trying too hard, just being herself. And that was enough. About an hour in, I was standing near the grill, flipping a burger, when I heard a voice behind me that made my spine stiffen for half a second. Wow, so this is what moving on looks like. I turned around. Rachel, hair curled, tight white jeans, heels in the grass, which made no sense at a barbecue, holding a red Solo cup and a smile that wasn't reaching her eyes. She wasn't supposed to be there. Apparently, she'd come with Amanda, one of Kevin's wife's friends. Amanda used to work in real estate with Rachel and still kept in touch. I guess nobody thought to mention to either of us that we'd both be there. She looked me up and down like she was scanning for signs of guilt or awkwardness. When she didn't find any, she looked over at Maddie, who was laughing with two other women near the back fence, holding a lemon soda. "She's cute," Rachel said flatly. I nodded. "She is." That response clearly didn't satisfy her. She shifted her weight, tilted her head. "You dating her now?" I didn't say anything for a second. Just looked her dead in the eye, then said, calm as ever, "She treats me like I matter." That's more than I can say for the last few years of my marriage. That one hit. I saw it in her eyes, that split-second flicker where her smile twitched and her throat moved like she was trying to swallow words she didn't know how to say. "So that's it?" she said. "You're just done pretending I meant something to you?" I took a breath, stepped a little closer, so I didn't have to raise my voice. "Rachel, I spent years trying to mean something to you. You rolled your eyes at me. You laughed in my face. You treated me like background noise. Now that I'm gone, suddenly you're rewriting history like I was the one who didn't try. She scoffed. I didn't know you were this bitter. I shook my head slowly. No, I'm not bitter. I'm just not pretending anymore. Right then, Maddie walked up behind me and slipped her arm casually around my waist. Not possessive, not dramatic, just natural, like she'd been there all along. Hey, babe. Kevin said the ribs are ready, she said, smiling. I looked at her and smiled back. Awesome. I've been waiting on those. Rachel stared at us for a second, and then she snapped. Unreal, she muttered. I give you 7 years of my life, and you throw it away for some grocery store version of me? Maddie blinked, stunned. I turned and faced Rachel fully. Don't disrespect her, I said, firm but calm. She didn't take anything from you. You gave it up the day you decided my love wasn't enough for you anymore. It got quiet, real quiet. A few people around us turned their heads. Rachel's eyes were starting to glass over, but she clenched her jaw like she was trying to hold herself together. You're a different person now, she said. No, I replied. I'm just finally being myself. The version of me you never bothered to see. She didn't respond. She just looked at Maddie one last time, then back at me. You'll regret this. One day, Maddie chuckled softly and said, That sounds familiar. Rachel shot her a glare, turned around, and stormed off across the lawn, her heels sinking into the grass with every step. I watched her go, and to my surprise, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel smug or satisfied. I felt free. The final thread had snapped. Not with a scream, not with a slam, but with a public meltdown that reminded everyone, especially me, just how much she'd underestimated the quiet man she pushed away. Maddie looked at me and said, You okay? I nodded. Better than ever. We went back to the grill, filled our plates, and sat on a picnic bench under a string of patio lights. I looked around at this normal, real, wholesome life I'd rebuilt. Burgers, friends, a girl who smiled with her eyes, music playing low, and I thought, this is what healing looks like. Not loud, not flashy, not Instagram perfect, just peaceful and real. It had been a while since I'd heard from Rachel. After the backyard barbecue incident, she went silent. No texts, no voicemails, no Instagram story jabs, nothing. And for a second, I honestly thought she might have finally let go, accepted the fact that I was never walking through her front door again. But peace doesn't last long with someone like her, especially when they're losing control. It was a Sunday morning. I had just gotten back from picking up donuts with Maddie and Ethan. We were back at my apartment, still in pajamas, watching Shark Tank reruns and arguing over whether or not the guy with the pet treadmill business was a genius or a lunatic. That's when my phone buzzed. Rachel. First time in weeks. I ignored it. Let's sit on the kitchen counter while I poured Ethan a glass of chocolate milk and Maddie reheated her coffee. I didn't need to check it right away. I already knew what kind of message it was going to be. But later that night, after they'd gone home, I sat on the edge of the bed, picked up my phone, and finally opened it. It was long. A wall of text. No greeting. No emojis. Just raw. Emotional. Typed out confusion disguised as sincerity. Here's what it said. You probably won't even read this, but I don't know how else to say this. I know I messed up. I didn't know how to appreciate someone like you until you were gone. I thought you'd always be there, no matter what. I thought I had more time to fix things. I didn't realize how quiet the house would feel without you. I miss your dumb jokes. I miss waking up to coffee already made. I miss feeling safe. I was going through stuff, and I pushed you away, and you left. I just wish you had fought a little harder for me. I don't blame you for being done. I just needed to say it. I still love you, even if it's too late. I read it twice, slowly, and you know what I felt? Not anger, not sadness, not even validation, just clarity, because every line in that message came from a place of fear, not love. She didn't miss me when I was there trying. She missed me when I was gone, thriving. She missed what I did for her, not who I was. She missed the stability, the comfort, the guy who made her dinner and fixed the garbage disposal, the guy who stayed loyal when she rolled her eyes at everything he said, the man who loved her even when she treated him like a burden. But she never said she was sorry for how she treated me. She never owned the laugh, the silence, The cold bedroom. The years of emotional neglect dressed up as you're too sensitive. She didn't want me back. She wanted the version of me that would tolerate being invisible again. And that man? He didn't exist anymore. I sat there for a few minutes, thumb hovering over the screen, thinking about how to respond, if I should respond at all. Part of me wanted to delete it and move on. But something told me that if I didn't say this now, she'd keep chasing ghosts. So I typed, slow, simple, clear. I did love you, and I did fight. For years. While you shut me out, mocked me, and acted like I wasn't enough. You didn't lose me because I didn't fight. You lost me because I finally stopped. I'm not the man you used to ignore, and you're not the woman I need anymore. I truly hope you find peace, but you won't find it in me. I stared at the message for a few seconds, then hit send, and that was it. I turned my phone off, got up, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. The next morning, I didn't even check to see if she replied, because her response didn't matter anymore. The closure wasn't in what she had to say. It was in what I no longer needed to hear. That whole week, I felt lighter, not giddy, not like some guy dancing in the rain to a breakup song, just steady, unshakable, like a man who had finally put down a burden he carried for too long. I told Maddie about the message, not to create drama, just to be open. She nodded after I read it to her, then said, "You didn't even flinch, did you?" I smiled, not even a little. She leaned into me on the couch, her head on my shoulder. "That's what healing looks like," she said. And she was right. A few days later, I ran into Amanda, the friend who'd brought Rachel to that barbecue, while I was picking up supplies at Lowe's. She came up to me with a smile, but it was the kind of smile people wear when they're trying to say something heavy. "Hey, Kyle, I know it's not my business, but I just wanted to say, Rachel's not doing great. I think she really thought you'd come back eventually." I nodded, respectfully. "I hope she finds her footing." Amanda looked at me a little closer and said, "You're different now." And I said, "Yeah, I don't chase closed doors anymore." Here's the thing people don't always understand. Healing isn't loud. It's not slamming doors or posting cryptic quotes or burning old photos. Sometimes it's just quietly outgrowing the place you once begged to be seen. Rachel thought I'd come back, thought I'd see one heartfelt message and snap back in her life like nothing ever happened. But real growth isn't reversible. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was just done with explaining myself to someone who never really wanted to understand me. Done with trying to convince someone to love me the way I deserved. Done with mistaking pain for loyalty. I chose peace. And when you've tasted peace, real peace, chaos doesn't tempt you anymore. Not even when it texts you late at night saying, "I still love you." I think one of the most underrated forms of revenge is moving on and doing better without needing to announce it. No grand post, no victory lap, just living well. That's it. After that final message from Rachel, the "I still love you" monologue and my calm, honest reply, I expected a little noise, maybe one more guilt trip or blame shift. But nothing came. She went quiet, and I didn't chase the silence. Instead, I kept moving forward, not just existing, not just surviving, but really living. That kind of slow, steady, brick by brick progress you don't notice until one day you look around and realize, damn, this feels like home again. I got promoted at work. My boss pulled me aside one day after a job in Shelbyville, clapped me on the back, and said, "You've been showing up like a man with something to prove, Kyle. Want a lead position?" And I said, "Only if I still get my hands dirty." He laughed. "You'll always be a wrench guy, huh?" So I became team lead. A little more pay, a little more headache, but it felt good. Felt earned. With the raise, I upgraded my apartment to a 2-bedroom just outside Jeffersontown. Enough space for Ethan to have his own room when he stayed over, which was starting to happen more often. Maddie and I were still taking things slow. No pressure. No what are we talks every 2 days. Just real connection. She'd stay the night on weekends. We'd do puzzles sometimes, actual puzzles, 500 pieces on the dining table. Or we'd watch Better Call Saul with a pizza and argue about whether or not Jimmy was a villain. It was simple, comfortable, the kind of relationship that didn't feel like walking on eggshells. And that's when I realized something. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like I was failing at being loved. I didn't feel like I had to convince someone I was enough. I didn't feel like I had to explain the way I talk or apologize for being tired or be embarrassed for showing emotion. I was just me, and someone actually liked that. Meanwhile, Rachel? Well, I wasn't keeping tabs, but life has a way of circling back. About 2 months after I sent her that final message, I ran into Lisa, one of Rachel's old real estate coworkers, at a local gas station. I was grabbing Gatorade and a pack of gum, and she spotted me by the fridge aisle. Kyle? Hey, we caught up for a minute. She asked how I was doing. I told her I was good, nothing flashy, just steady. She nodded slowly, then said, You know, Rachel's been kind of a mess lately. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, she quit the agency. Tried going solo, but her listings dried up. Something about a bad client review. I don't know. She hasn't been herself. Keeps posting weird stuff online, like angry breakup quotes and vague stories. I just nodded. Hope she figures things out. Lisa looked at me for a second longer, then said, She talks about you a lot, you know? Always like she didn't think you'd actually move on. I didn't answer, because I had. A few days later, I got a DM from a burner Instagram account. No profile picture, no followers, but I knew it was her. The writing style gave it away. That weird mix of sarcasm and vulnerability. It said, Must be nice. You're glowing these days. Hope she's worth everything you threw away. I didn't reply. Not because I was trying to win a silent war, but because I was finally past the point of needing to defend my peace. And that's the difference between her and me now. I wasn't pretending to be happy on social media. I wasn't cryptically attacking people through stories or dragging my past behind me like a weapon. I was just living. One Saturday afternoon, Maddie and I took Ethan to Bernheim Forest. It was sunny, warm, with that early fall breeze rolling through the trees. We hiked one of the easier trails, packed sandwiches, and had a little picnic near the creek. Ethan skipped rocks while Maddie sat beside me, her head on my shoulder, just breathing in the calm. It was one of those moments you don't even realize is going to stick with you forever until you're driving home, and you can't stop smiling. Later that night, while Ethan was passed out on the couch and we were watching some random documentary, I looked over and said, You know I was a ghost before you, right? She turned to me. What do you mean? I didn't even recognize myself toward the end of that marriage. I was showing up for someone who didn't even look up when I walked in the room. Maddie took my hand, squeezed it. You're not a ghost anymore. And she was right. Rachel, from what little I've heard, started burning bridges. The friends who used to hype her up got tired of the constant drama. She started making passive-aggressive posts like, Funny how people only care when they lose access to you. Or, loyalty is dead. People just switch up for the next best thing. Every once in a while, someone would send me a screenshot like, Yo, is this about you? I'd just reply, Probably, and move on. Because that's what growth looks like, not needing to correct the narrative anymore. I didn't care what she told people. I cared that I was showing up to work on time, paying my bills, showing kindness to people who deserved it, and sleeping like a man who wasn't carrying regret anymore. Rachel collapsed slowly, not dramatically, not all at once. Her business dropped off. Her circle got smaller. Her online persona got messy. Meanwhile, I was getting invited to cookouts. I was building furniture with Ethan. I was getting texts from Maddie during the day that said things like, Hope your day's going smooth. I appreciate you. And for a guy who used to come home to eye rolls and cold shoulders, that one sentence meant everything. You know what the real revenge is? It's peace. It's walking into your place after a long day, kicking your boots off, smelling something cooking on the stove, and hearing someone in the next room laugh just because they're happy to be around you. It's realizing you don't flinch when you get a text from your ex. It's noticing that you don't miss them anymore. You miss who you thought they were. And once you stop chasing ghosts, you realize how much living you've been missing out on. Rachel may never admit what she lost, but that's okay, because I know what I found, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. You ever have one of those mornings where nothing special happens, but it just feels right? The sun comes in through the blinds. You hear the sound of coffee brewing in the kitchen. There's no chaos, no tension, no cold shoulders, just stillness. That's what peace feels like. I had one of those mornings not long ago. I woke up around 7, no alarm. Maddie was already up, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a blanket around her shoulders, sipping her coffee and scrolling through her phone with that half-asleep look in her eyes. Ethan was still passed out in his room, snoring like a grown man, even though he's only 8. I stood there for a second in the hallway, just watching them. And that's when it really hit me. This is what home is supposed to feel like. Not grand, not perfect, but safe, honest, real. It had been over a year since I walked out of that house, the one Rachel and I shared, with a backpack, a pair of boots, and no plan. And looking back now, it almost feels like it was someone else's life. Like I was watching some other guy go through it all. The emotional starvation, the begging, the quiet nights spent wondering where he went wrong. But it was me. That was my story. And this is my life now. Maddie and I didn't rush things. We kept it real. Over time, we naturally started spending more nights together. Then weekends. Then weekdays. Eventually, we had this should we just make this official talk while grocery shopping, mid-aisle, right between the canned soups and the tortilla chips. It wasn't a big declaration. She just looked over and said, "You realize we practically live together, right?" I smiled. I was hoping you'd notice. She laughed. "Well, if you're going to keep eating my cereal, you might as well stay." And that was it. No fireworks. No awkward speech. Just two people finally ready for something that felt like stability. I got a better job offer about 6 months ago, HVAC supervisor at a small but growing company in Elizabethtown. Better hours, better pay, and they trust me to train the younger techs. I love that part, getting to show these 22-year-old guys how to crawl through a tight attic without frying themselves or busting a knee. Feels good to be respected for what I know. Feels even better to come home to someone who respects me for who I am. Maddie and I took a weekend trip a few months back. Just the two of us. Left Ethan with his grandparents, packed up the car, and drove out to Red River Gorge. We hiked. We sat by a fire. We drank whiskey under the stars. And on the last night, out of nowhere, she turned to me and said, "You've changed so much since I first saw you in that hardware store." I looked at her. "Good change." She nodded. "You don't carry yourself like a man waiting to be hurt anymore." Man, if you've ever been through emotional neglect, you know how deep that hits. That sentence stuck with me. Still does. Rachel? I haven't seen her in almost a year. I hear things through the grapevine, sometimes. Apparently, she's bounced around a few jobs. Went into coaching for a bit. One of those empower women kinds of things, but it didn't last. Her Instagram's full of self-love isn't selfish quotes layered over moody selfies and cryptic captions. I don't follow. Don't check. But people send stuff sometimes. I don't even react anymore. Because the truth is, I don't miss her. Not even a little. I don't hate her either. And that might be the wildest part. I don't feel anything about her now. She's just someone I used to know. I know what some people expect at the end of stories like this. They expect the dramatic revenge. The ex begging at your door. The slow clap ending. But sometimes the best ending is the quiet one. No confrontation. No public, "I told you so." Just healing, growth, and peace. The kind of peace that doesn't demand attention. The kind you wake up to one morning and realize you built for yourself. Brick by brick, breath by breath. One night, not long ago, I was driving home from picking Ethan up from soccer practice. He was half asleep in the back seat, grass stains on his socks, holding a water bottle like it was a trophy. We were listening to some old country song on the radio, one of those bittersweet, slow ones about second chances and quiet love. And I found myself tearing up. Not because I was sad, not even because I was overwhelmed, but because I was just grateful. Grateful that I made it through that storm. Grateful that I didn't stay where I wasn't loved. Grateful that I didn't let someone else's cold heart convince me that I was hard to care for. Grateful that I walked away. Because walking away, that was the moment everything started. Not the day I met Maddie. Not the day Rachel sent the apology. The day I walked away from being invisible. That was the beginning of this whole new life. So if you're listening to this right now, and you're in that stage, that numb, confusing, gut-wrenching phase where someone you love is treating you like an option while you treat them like a priority, let me say this. You don't have to stay in pain to prove you're loyal. You don't have to beg someone to choose you when they keep showing you they won't. And you absolutely don't owe anyone your peace just because you used to love them. Walk away if you have to. Not to hurt them, but to save yourself. I don't have a perfect life now. It's not a movie. Bills still come. Work still gets stressful. Ethan still throws a fit when he loses in Mario Kart. But I wake up every day knowing I'm not invisible anymore. I'm not someone's backup plan. I'm not the emotional punching bag. I'm not the guy sitting at the dinner table with a plate of cold food, wondering where everything went wrong. I'm just a man who finally chose peace over chaos, love over ego, truth over image. And you know what? That's more than enough for me. You don't really notice when it first starts happening. That's the crazy part. I'm Evan, 42 years old, HVAC tech out of Charlotte. I've been married to Tessa since I was 29. We've got a mortgage, a dog named Rocky, and a shared Hulu account with her stupid reality shows still sitting in my continue watching list. You know, real adult stuff. And let me tell you, I didn't wake up one day knowing something was broken. It wasn't a dramatic fight or a screaming match. It was smaller than that. Way smaller. It was a Tuesday morning. Just a regular, dead boring Tuesday. I was heading out to work at 6:15 a.m., coffee in hand, boots tied, my work shirt still warm from the dryer. I leaned in for the usual goodbye, just a small kiss, nothing over the top, and she kind of leaned away. Not big, not obvious, just subtle, like she was focused on her phone, like my kiss was an interruption. I stood there for a second, trying not to feel stupid. All right, I'll see you later, I said, like it didn't sting. She nodded without looking up. That was it. That was the first time she didn't kiss me goodbye. The next day, same thing. And the day after that, she mumbled something like, "I'm breaking out. I don't want makeup on your face." Bull. We've been together for over a decade, since before her fancy skincare routines and juice cleanses. None of that ever stopped her from hugging me before. But now she always had an excuse. I'm late. I'm not feeling good. Don't start, Evan. It's not a big deal. Thing is, it was a big deal. You come home every day, dead, tired from climbing through crawl spaces and attics in the middle of Carolina humidity, and the only thing keeping you sane is knowing someone's waiting for you at home who actually cares. And when that someone starts acting like you're just a background character in her Instagram story, man, it hits different. She stopped kissing me, but it wasn't just about kisses. It was about connection. It was the shift. The beginning of the "I don't need you emotionally, but I'll still enjoy your paycheck" era. You know what I'm talking about? And just to be clear, we weren't perfect before this. I mean, who is? But we had a routine. I'd come home, she'd ask about my day, we'd cook together, even if it was just throwing frozen pizza in the oven and laughing at dumb TikToks. That stuff started to fade, bit by bit, like watching paint peel off a wall. Instead of dinner together, she started ordering DoorDash just for herself, like 2 poke bowls or a Caesar salad and a smoothie from Clean Juice. She didn't even ask if I wanted anything. I'd walk in and she'd be sitting cross-legged on the couch, watching some true crime show with her AirPods and like I was just passing through her apartment. It's not like I didn't try. I did. I'd text her during the day, "Hey babe, how's your day?" Or, "You want to go grab dinner after I finish this install job?" You know I get back? Busy. Or worse, nothing at all until hours later. "Oh, sorry, just saw this." Let me tell you, man, when someone stops seeing you, it's worse than yelling. Yelling means there's still fire. But silence? Silence is cold. I started noticing other things, too. Like how she'd laugh at her phone, but not at anything I said. How she started wearing perfume when she was just meeting a friend for coffee. She'd say it was Brie or Claire from her book club, but I'd never actually seen this so-called book club. And don't even get me started on the phone, always being face down. Every single time. The more I tried to reach her, the more I felt like I was clawing at a wall. One night, I finally asked, "Tessa, is something going on? Did I do something wrong?" And she sighed, like I was annoying her, like my concern for our marriage was just another thing she had to check off her to-do list. She said, "Evan, not everything's about you. I'm just stressed." Stressed. She wasn't working a full-time job. She did part-time event planning from home, mostly weddings and birthdays. I paid the mortgage, the bills, the car note. Hell, even her gym membership at Orange Theory that she wanted maybe twice a week max. But sure, she was the stressed one. What really stuck with me was how uninterested she became in us. I could have walked in wearing a clown suit, and she wouldn't have blinked. She'd scroll through TikTok for an hour straight without once looking up. And when I tried to cuddle her on the couch or rest my hand on her leg like we used to do without even thinking, she'd pull away like I was sweaty or something. I stopped trying after a while. You can only knock on a locked door for so long before your knuckles bleed. And hers was locked, bolted, and chained from the inside. People talk a lot about betrayal like it's always cheating. But you know what hits harder than cheating? Neglect. When someone you build a life with just stops showing up, stops caring, stops choosing you. I remember this one Sunday morning. We used to make pancakes together, play some old Jack Johnson songs, be silly in the kitchen. This time I woke up, she was already gone. Left a note that said, "Ran to get coffee. Be back soon." She came home 2 hours later with Starbucks and a new cardigan. No explanation. No sorry. Just, they were having a sale at Target. And I stood there, watching her toss receipts on the counter I installed myself last summer. And I thought, she doesn't love me anymore. Not even a little. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was hollow. I felt like a stranger in my own house. Like someone who used to matter, and now I was just the guy who paid for things and took the trash out. That's when I started changing. Quietly. But I'll get to that. The thing that broke me, though, the thing that sealed it, wasn't some big dramatic fight. It was a moment so small it'd sound stupid if I told it to anyone else. I was heading out for a 12-hour shift, and I looked at her one last time before opening the front door. She was sitting there on the couch, scrolling through her phone, blanket wrapped around her legs, her face completely blank. And I said, "Love you." She didn't look up. She didn't say it back. Just nodded slightly like I was a roommate, saying, "See you later." I stood there in the doorway a little longer than usual. Not because I was hoping she'd change her mind, but because I realized mine had already started changing. I knew then, deep down, something inside me had shut off. Something big. I didn't say another word. I just walked out and went to work, but that morning I wasn't just leaving the house. I was leaving her, and she didn't even notice. It's wild how fast you can go from being someone's whole world to just another body in a room. After the kisses stopped and her distance became routine, it wasn't just about physical touch anymore. It was everything. It was the quiet, the dead, awkward silence that creeps in and fills the house like fog. You know how couples have that kind of rhythm? That back and forth, those little inside jokes, the random updates about your day that don't mean much, but keep you connected? All of that dried up. I'm talking Sahara Desert levels of dry. It's not like she stormed out or slammed doors. That would have made more sense, honestly. At least anger means there's still a pulse. What I got instead was the kind of silence that feels like you're living with a ghost that still uses your Netflix and complains about the thermostat being set too low. I'd walk in the door from work and say, "Hey, what's up?" And she'd go, "Hey," without even glancing up from her phone. She'd be scrolling TikTok, always with the same stone face, earbuds in, occasionally smirking at something some random girl said online, but never reacting to me. Like I wasn't even part of the world happening around her anymore. Dinner? Forget it. She'd already eaten. I'd find dishes in the sink, salad bowls, maybe takeout containers from Panera, and she'd be in bed by 9:30, curled up on her side with that blanket she always used like she was freezing me out on purpose. At first, I tried keeping the peace. I come home with groceries and say stuff like, "Hey, they had your favorite almond milk at Harris Teeter," just to get a reaction. Nothing. Not even a thanks. She'd just nod or keep texting. And it's not like I was asking for her to throw me a parade, man. I just wanted some acknowledgement. A little warmth. Something. Instead, I felt like a background character in her personal movie, the guy who pays the bills and occasionally unclogs the sink. Sometimes we'd sit in the same room and go literal hours without speaking. And when I'd finally break and say something like, "You good?" or "Everything okay?" she'd hit me with a half-hearted, "Yeah, just tired." Always just tired. Tired from what, though? I'm busting my ass in 90-degree crawl spaces every day, fixing broken A/CS for people who never say thank you. I come home dirty, sore, and starving. And she's tired from what? Sitting at the dining table planning bridal showers? Look, I supported her freelancing career. Always did. I encouraged her to quit that job at the dentist's office and follow her passion for event planning. But somewhere along the way, that support turned into her acting like she didn't need me at all, unless the Wi-Fi stopped working, or she needed her car serviced. What really messed me up, though, wasn't the silence. It was the way she used silence. Like a weapon. She could go an entire weekend without speaking a single kind word. We'd drive to her parents' house in Concord. 30 minutes of quiet in the car, not even music. I try to talk, say something like, I was thinking of redoing the deck, and she'd respond with, that's all I got. The worst part? I started blaming myself. I'd look in the mirror and wonder, am I boring now? Did I get too comfortable? Is this my fault? And I think that's what people outside the marriage never understand. The slow erosion of your confidence. It's not like one day she says, I don't love you. It's more like, every day she says nothing until you stop loving yourself. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one night, watching her on the couch. She was smiling, not at me, not because of me, just smiling at her screen. Probably watching some influencer talking about manifesting your soft life. And I just sat there with a microwave burrito and a beer, wondering how we'd gotten here. You ever feel lonely while sitting right next to someone? Like, you could reach out and touch them, but emotionally, they're already across the country? That's how I felt every single night. And it wasn't just emotional distance. It was this attitude. She had like everything about me was annoying. I cleared my throat too loud. I'd chew too aggressively. My laugh would make her roll her eyes. Hell, one night I sneezed, a regular damn sneeze, and she looked up from her phone and said, You're so dramatic. I swear to God. I started questioning whether I was actually annoying or if she was just finding excuses to hate me, so she wouldn't feel guilty for checking out. That's how twisted your head gets. Our dog, Rocky, he's this big mutt we rescued for shelter in Gastonia. He started sleeping on my side of the bed instead of hers. Even he picked up on a shift. Dogs can feel that stuff, man. He'd follow me around more, like he knew I was the one still holding on. I started waking up earlier, not to be productive, but because sleep became this weird escape. I get up at 5 a.m., shower, get dressed, make coffee, and to just sit in the garage for 30 minutes doing nothing. Just sitting there in the silence because, honestly, it was more peaceful than being in that house with her. At one point, I even brought up marriage counseling. Her reaction? Therapies for couples with actual problems. Like this wasn't a problem. So I stopped bringing it up. I stopped trying to fix it. I stopped trying to be fixed. I realized I'd been trying to build a bridge while she was busy lighting the wood on fire from her end. The emotional starvation didn't happen overnight. It was death by 1,000 little cuts. No more, how was your day? No more, you look tired. Want a back rub? No more, I miss you texts or random hugs in the kitchen. It was just the void. A house with working Wi-Fi, food in the fridge, laundry folded, but no life in it. Eventually, I started talking less too. Not out of spite, but because what was the point? When someone's not listening, eventually you stop speaking. And the second I stopped trying, she noticed. But that's a story for later. One night, I was sitting on the back deck, drinking a Miller Lite, scrolling through Facebook, and saw a picture of us from 5 years ago at Lake Norman. Tessa was sitting on my lap, sunglasses on, laughing her ass off about something stupid I'd said. We looked like we were in our own world. So happy, so in sync. And I sat there staring at that photo for 10 minutes, trying to remember what it felt like to be loved like that. But I couldn't. I couldn't even remember the last time she looked at me like I mattered. That's when I knew the love was gone. Not hers, mine. I wasn't mad. I wasn't sad. I was empty. And that kind of emptiness, it doesn't get filled by begging or promises or another "we just need time." It gets filled by walking away. But I hadn't left yet. Not physically. That part was coming. For now, I just shut down. Quietly. Like a light fading out in a room no one uses anymore. You ever get to that point where you know deep down the relationship's dying, but you still throw one last Hail Mary? Just to prove to yourself that you gave it everything. That it wasn't you who gave up? Yeah, that was me. Even after all the silence, the cold shoulder, the emotional black hole our house had turned into, I still had that sliver of hope. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was denial. Maybe it was just love refusing to let go without a final swing. So I tried. One last time. It started on a Thursday morning. I was sitting in my work van eating a cold sausage biscuit from Bojangles and listening to the radio. Some guy talking about how he and his wife had hit a rough patch and went away for the weekend to reconnect. And he said something that hit me hard. We stopped being partners, and started acting like coworkers who live in the same house. Man, that hit like a punch in the ribs. That was exactly what it felt like between me and Tessa. So that night, I sat down and planned a little weekend for us. Nothing crazy. I wasn't trying to fly us to Miami or go full Nicholas Sparks. I just thought we could drive up to Asheville, stay at a little cabin, grab dinner downtown, maybe hit the Blue Ridge Parkway, and clear our heads. Just remember how to be us again. I found a place on Airbnb, cozy spot, wood-burning fireplace, pet-friendly, so Rocky could come too. Booked it. When I got home, she was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone while pretending to make salad. I walked in and said, "Hey, so I was thinking, what if we took a weekend off? Just you and me. I found a cabin up in Asheville. It's got a hot tub, a little view of the mountains. Could be good for us." She didn't even look up. Just said, "I've got that bridal expo next weekend. You know that." I said, "Yeah, but this is important too, don't you think?" She sighed and finally made eye contact barely. "Evan, you can't just spring this stuff on me. I have things going on." And just like that, the door shut. But I didn't give up. Not yet. The next morning, I got up early and made her breakfast. Not just toast and eggs. I made pancakes, bacon, fresh strawberries. I even made her favorite oat milk latte with cinnamon, the way she used to like it. Set it all up on the dining table. She came down, hair tied up, wearing that faded college sweatshirt she always threw on in the mornings. She walked past the table like it wasn't even there. I said, "Morning. I made you breakfast." She looked over at the food, raised her eyebrows like she was mildly confused, and said, "I'm not really hungry." Then she grabbed a protein bar from the pantry and went back upstairs. I just sat there staring at the food. My fork never touched the plate. But I kept going. That night, I picked up a bottle of her favorite rose and rented one of those cheesy rom-coms she used to love, Crazy Stupid Love. Set up the living room with a blanket, dim lights. Even lit one of those expensive candles she always saved for special nights. She walked in, looked around, and said, "Is this for something?" I said, "Just figure we could hang out like old times. Relax. Talk." She stood there for a second, like she was deciding if it was worth it, then said, "I've got a Zoom call with a client in 20 minutes, and disappeared into the bedroom. I shut off the movie halfway through. Sat in the dark with a half-empty glass of wine and Rocky curled up next to me, snoring like he didn't have a care in the world. And you know what? That was probably the most affection I'd gotten in weeks. But still, I wasn't done trying. I thought maybe it wasn't the big things she wanted. Maybe she missed the simple stuff, the little gestures. So I went back to what I used to do back when we were first dating. Left her sticky notes on the bathroom mirror. "You're beautiful. Hope your day's amazing. Still proud to call you mine." She didn't say a word about them. I found 2 of them crumpled in the trash the next morning. So I started texting her during the day like I used to. Not just the, "Hey, what's for dinner" stuff, but real messages. "Thinking about you. Saw something that reminded me of our beach trip last summer. Miss you." Half the time she didn't respond. And when she did, it was dry. One-word replies. "Cool. Nice. Busy RN." I even tried complimenting her. Told her how good she looked in this burgundy dress she wore one night before heading out to a girls' dinner. She looked at me and said, "It's just a dress, Evan. Relax." It was like she couldn't even accept kindness without resenting it. Like I was bothering her by caring. I remember one night, she came home late, probably close to 11 p.m., and I asked how dinner went. She said, "Fine," then grabbed a bottle of water and went to bed without another word. No kiss. No goodnight. Just a closed door. And that's when something inside me broke. I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed bedroom door, and I realized I was done chasing. I had tried. I had really tried. I put aside my pride, my ego, my pain, just to see if there was anything left to save. There wasn't. She didn't even want to be saved. She just wanted freedom, space, comfort, access to the life I built without having to show up for me emotionally. And the thing is, I didn't need her to be perfect. I didn't even need her to be overly affectionate or clingy. I just needed to feel like I mattered. Like my presence meant something more than a debit card and a working dryer vent. The thing about being enough is that it's not about what you do. It's about how the other person sees you. And once someone decides they're done seeing your worth, it doesn't matter how much effort you pour in, it just spills out the bottom like a cracked bucket. I went to bed that night, laid next to her without touching her, and stared at the ceiling for 2 hours thinking, this is it. This is the last night I beg someone to love me. After that, I stopped writing notes. I stopped planning surprises. I stopped buying flowers. I stopped asking how her day was. And most importantly, I stopped apologizing for being me. Because the truth is, I wasn't the problem. I was just the guy trying to feed a relationship that already starved to death months ago. And the thing about effort? It only matters when the other person wants to meet you halfway. She didn't. So I stopped walking in circles by myself. But what came next? That's where things really started to shift. Because when I pulled back, she noticed. And not in a let's fix this kind of way. No, more like, why are you different? But by then, I had already started to wake up. You ever wake up one day and feel different, but can't exactly explain it? That was me. It wasn't like I had some huge epiphany or found a text from another guy or walked in on her doing something scandalous. Nothing dramatic like that. What actually happened was nothing. And that's exactly what changed everything. One Thursday morning, I woke up and realized I didn't care what mood Tessa was in. I didn't care if she smiled at me or ignored me. Didn't care if she kissed me goodbye or rolled over and went back to sleep. And that scared me. But not because I was afraid of losing her. It scared me because I finally understood I had already lost her. And what's worse, I had lost myself along the way. You see, I've been bending over backwards for months, trying to bring life into a relationship that had been emotionally dead for a while. I had watered the plant, moved it to the sunlight, trimmed the leaves, but it was still dying. And one day I just stopped. I stopped playing the fool. And that shift, it was quiet, subtle, but real. I didn't slam doors. I didn't yell or accuse. I just stopped showing up emotionally the same way she had stopped long before me. She didn't notice it right away. That's the funny part. She was so used to me trying, checking in, asking if she wanted dinner, offering to rub her back after long days, texting her funny memes just to get a smile, that when I stopped doing it, she assumed I was just in a bad mood or tired. But day by day, she started to notice the silence. And she didn't like it. One night, we were sitting on the couch, both staring at our phones. Classic scene, right? But this time, I didn't try to make small talk. I didn't try to start a conversation or ask what she wanted to watch. I just got up, grabbed my keys, and walked out. Didn't say where I was going. Didn't ask if she wanted anything. I drove to the gas station, got a beer and a Slim Jim, and sat in the parking lot listening to a podcast. Alone. Peaceful. Nobody nagging. Nobody ignoring. Just me. When I got back home an hour later, she asked, "Where were you?" I said, "Just needed some air." She looked at me a little longer than usual, like she couldn't quite figure out the tone. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cold. It was detached. And that bothered her more than if I had snapped. You see, up until that point, she had all the power. She decided when we talked, when we didn't. She decided if we were affectionate, if we were distant. I was always responding, chasing, adjusting to her mood like some damn thermostat. But now she was dealing with a version of me that didn't need her mood to dictate mine. That's when I knew I was on the right track. Next morning, she got up and actually made coffee. For both of us. That hadn't happened in months. She set the mug on the table like it was some kind of peace offering. I said, "Thanks," drank it, and didn't say anything else. She asked, "You okay?" I nodded. "I'm good," and I meant it. I started focusing on me again, for real this time. Not to get her attention, but because I genuinely needed to pull myself out of the emotional pit I'd been buried in. I hit the gym before work. Nothing fancy, just the local Planet Fitness off Independence Boulevard. Did some treadmill, lifted light. Got a protein shake after. It wasn't about getting jacked or impressing anyone. It was about doing something for me. I also started hanging out with people again. Old friends I hadn't seen in years because Tessa didn't like the vibe or thought they were immature. Guys like Marcus and Ray. We used to work together before they started their own HVAC business. We grabbed beers one Friday after work, and I laughed harder in those 2 hours than I had in 6 months at home. That night, I came home a little buzzed, nothing wild, and she was on the couch, arms crossed. "You could have texted," she said. I shrugged. "Didn't think you'd care." She just stared at me. You could see it, that flicker of confusion, maybe even fear. Because for the first time, she realized. I wasn't chasing anymore. I wasn't trying to fix things. I wasn't begging for her attention. I had pulled the plug, emotionally, financially, mentally, and she didn't know how to handle it. That weekend, I cut off the shared Amazon account, changed the password on the Netflix, removed her from the credit card I had added her to when she was freelancing full-time and barely making anything. I didn't do it to be spiteful. I did it because I was done funding a one-way street. You stop kissing me? I stop handing you comfort. You stop showing up for me? I stop bending over backwards to make your life easier. It wasn't revenge. It was balance. She noticed quick. Next time she went to check out at Target, card declined. Call me. What's wrong with the card? I said, it's closed. You'll have to use your own now. There was a long silence. Then, you're being petty. No, I said. I'm just done investing in someone who's already emotionally cashed out. Click. She hung up, and I smiled. It's not that I was trying to hurt her, believe me. That was never the goal. I loved her. Hell, part of me still did. But there's a difference between love and self-destruction. And I was done destroying myself to hold up a marriage she wasn't even touching anymore. That next week, I sat down and wrote out a list of things I wanted for myself. Simple stuff. Fix the garage door. Start saving for a solo trip to Colorado. Cook meals that I actually enjoy. Join a local rec basketball league. I hadn't done anything like that in years because my entire identity had been wrapped around keeping the marriage alive. But now I had space to breathe. And as I started standing taller, smiling more, dressing better, she noticed. One night she walked into the kitchen while I was cooking salmon, broccoli, brown rice. She said, "Smells good." I nodded. Yeah, I've been experimenting a little. She stood there, watching me for a second, then asked, "You're really different lately." I just looked at her and said, "I am." And I meant it. You ever watch someone panic when their emotional vending machine suddenly stops working? That's what started happening with Tessa. All those years, she got unlimited access to my attention, like it was some kind of free subscription. No login, no password, no effort needed. She didn't have to say please, didn't have to show appreciation, didn't even have to look up from her phone. Just existed in the same room. And I gave her love, care, presence, everything. But now the machine was unplugged. And let me tell you, the moment I stopped being on demand, she noticed fast. It started small. Like, she walked into the kitchen one morning, and I was at the table sipping coffee, reading the news on my phone. Normally, I'd ask if she wanted coffee too, or offer to make her oatmeal the way she liked it. Almond milk, blueberries, a little honey on top. But that morning, I didn't say a word, didn't even look up. She opened the cabinet, looked around, and finally said, "You didn't make any for me?" I said, "Didn't know you were having any." You should have seen her face. Not mad, just confused. Like I had broken a script she wrote years ago. From that day on, things got awkward real quick. She'd come home from one of her work meetings, which, let's be real, were just fancy brunches with her friend Becca, where they sipped mimosas and pretended to brainstorm about centerpieces, and I wouldn't be waiting by the door anymore. I'd be outside, sanding down a piece of wood for the fire pit project I started in the backyard. Shirt off, music playing, mind in my own world. She'd wave from the porch like, "Hey," expecting me to light up or ask about her day. I'd just nod and keep working. No chase. No compliments. No, "You look nice." And that's when I realized something big. Tessa had grown addicted to being the center of my world, but never earned it. For years, she was used to being orbiting around, and I was the sun, always shining, always available, always giving off warmth no matter what she did. Now, I was gone, and her universe was getting cold. She tried to pull me back in subtly at first. Started dressing a little nicer at home. One night, she wore this old, oversized shirt I used to love on her. Used to call it her sleepy kitten shirt, and she walked past me a little slower than usual, like she was trying to get my eyes to follow. I didn't budge. Another night, she made tacos, something she hadn't done in months, and brought me a plate without even asking. I said, "Thanks," and ate while watching the game. Didn't offer more. Didn't say it reminded me of old times. Didn't open any door for her to walk back through. She was fishing. I wasn't biting. And I know how this sounds, like I was playing games. But here's the truth. I wasn't trying to punish her. I was just done giving away intimacy, care, and presence to someone who hadn't given me those things in months. Attention, affection, access, all those things have value. And I finally decided to stop giving them out for free to someone who clearly didn't see the worth in them. Let me give you a perfect example. That Friday night, she asked if I wanted to go with her to her cousin's housewarming. Normally, I'd have gone just to show face, make her look good, be the supportive husband while she networked with her family. But this time, I said, I'm staying in. Got some stuff to work on. She blinked. You're not coming? No, you always come. Not anymore. She didn't argue. She just walked away, but I could tell it hit her hard. See, for the first time, she had to explain my absence to other people. She had to show up alone. No loving husband at her side. No safety net. And I know her family noticed. They've always asked about us, especially since we were this stable couple. Married young, no scandals, no drama. But now, she had to explain the cracks. That night, I was at home sitting on the back deck with a cold drink, rocky by my feet, and music low. I wasn't even thinking about her. And that felt so damn good. But you know what happens when people who are used to being adored suddenly get ignored? They start to scramble. She started testing me. One night, out of nowhere, she walked into the living room and sat right next to me, like right up against my side, something she hadn't done in what felt like a year. I was watching a documentary, and she just leaned her head on my shoulder. I froze, not because I was nervous, but because it felt so fake. I didn't move, didn't react. After a minute, she said, "Are we okay?" I looked at her and said, "We're civil." She frowned. "That's it." I shrugged. "It's better than how things were." She didn't say anything after that. She got up, went to the kitchen. I heard the fridge open, then close. No more conversation. A few days later, she brought up something totally random while I was brushing my teeth. "Remember that time we went to Myrtle Beach and you lost your wallet in the arcade?" I said, "What?" "No reason. Just thinking about it." I nodded. "Cool," and walked out. She was trying to nostalgia bait me, pull me back into the warm, fuzzy memories so I'd start melting again. But I wasn't that guy anymore. She'd had the full, undivided version of me. She knew what it felt like to have all my energy, all my love, all my attention. Now she was getting the leftovers, the part that didn't bend anymore. And for someone like Tessa, someone who had lived so long off of my validation, my time, my effort, it was like cutting off oxygen. One night, we were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, and she just blurted out, "I don't like this version of you." I looked at her and calmly said, "This version of me was created by the last 6 months of you." Silence. She stared at me, like I had just spoken a language she didn't understand. Because for the first time in our relationship, I had boundaries. I had value, and I wasn't afraid to protect it. You want to stop kissing me? You want to act cold? You want to treat me like an accessory in your life instead of a partner? Fine, but you don't get access to my emotional wallet anymore. You don't get love on demand. You don't get my attention without investing your own. And let me tell you something real. The second I stopped giving her that attention for free, she realized how expensive it actually was. Let me tell you something real. In a relationship, money isn't just about bills. It's about energy, attention, power. And for the longest time, I was the generator keeping our whole life running while she just plugged in whenever she felt like it. But once I stopped chasing her emotionally, something inside me said, "Why are you still funding this circus?" And just like that, I started flipping switches. Quietly, calculated. And let me be clear, I'm not some spiteful guy who wanted revenge through a bank statement. That's not what this was. This was me realizing I'd been emotionally abandoned and financially drained, and I wasn't going to keep writing checks for a woman who treated me like a roommate with a credit card. Tessa never had a real job. I don't say that with judgment. It was something we agreed on years ago. When she left her dental assistant job to do event planning full-time, I supported her, told her I had her back, helped her build her little website, got her a new MacBook, even covered the cost of her first few clients, because it takes time to get started, right? Well, 5 years later, she was still barely bringing in anything. A couple gigs here and there, some baby showers, maybe one wedding a month. And I was covering the rest: mortgage, car note, utilities, food, phone plan, internet, insurance, you name it. And I was fine with that when we were partners. But now she was treating me like a walking debit machine while she gave nothing back emotionally. Not even basic respect. So one morning, after a long look in a mirror, I sat down and looked at our joint finances. I had been avoiding it for months. You ever do that? Avoid checking your bank statement because you already know the numbers are going to piss you off? Yeah, that was me. I opened the account and saw it. Uber Eats 3 times that week. Target, Amazon, Sephora, Starbucks. $160 on some online fitness program she never even opened. I was literally funding her disinterest. So that day, I made some changes. First, I called the bank and removed her from the joint credit card. I didn't close it, just made it mine. Next, I opened a brand new checking account under my name only and started redirecting my direct deposit into it. Then I changed all my passwords. Amazon, Hulu, Spotify Family Plan, even the damn grocery app. Everything. I logged her out of all of it. And then I froze the card she always used for gas and groceries. Left $50 in the joint account just so it wouldn't raise flags, but otherwise, pipeline closed. She didn't notice right away. But when she did, oh boy, it was a Thursday afternoon. I was wrapping up an AC unit repair for a church down in Monroe when I got a text. Tessa, hey, did you cancel a card? My payment didn't go through at Publix. I stared at my phone for a second, then just texted back. Me, nope, just change some things. You'll need to start using your own. She didn't respond. Not right away. But when I got home, she was waiting, standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, looking like she had rehearsed her lines all day. What the hell, Evan? I calmly put down my keys. What? You froze the card. You changed the accounts. Why would you do that without telling me? I looked her dead in the eye and said, because I realized I've been carrying the weight of this household alone, financially, emotionally, everything, and I'm not doing it anymore. She scoffed. So, this is punishment now? No, it's called accountability. She started pacing. So what? Now I have to ask you for money like I'm your child? I shrugged. I never told you not to work. You chose this setup. I just stopped pretending it was fair. She didn't have a comeback. And that was the first real moment I saw panic in her face. Because for years, I had made life so easy for her. And now she was realizing just how much comfort she'd been coasting on. She tried to gaslight me later that night, sat next to me on the bed and said, I've supported you in other ways, Evan. Emotional labor. I've taken care of things behind the scenes you don't even see. I looked at her and said, you haven't kissed me in 4 months. Don't talk to me about emotional labor. She didn't have a response, just turned over and stared at the wall. And that was the night I knew she was starting to feel it. Not just the silence, not just the distance, but the loss of access. The next week was a mess. She tried to use the car and realized I had switched the insurance policy into my name only. She had to call her mom to borrow $40 for gas. She tried to order a new pair of sneakers online, declined. She texted me again. Tessa, can you please send me money for groceries? Me, you got a business. Use your income. Tessa, I haven't booked anything this month. Come on. Me, that's not my fault. Then silence again. The power shift was real. And you know what? I didn't feel guilty. For years, I gave everything without keeping score. But when she stopped showing up and started acting like I owed her my love, my time, and my money while she gave nothing, that's when I realized the balance had been off for way too long. I was just fixing it. You see, in most relationships, we're taught to just keep giving. Happy wife, happy life. But what happens when the wife isn't happy and she's not making you happy either? What happens when she's taking from every angle and acting like it's your job to accept the bare minimum? I'll tell you what happens. You freeze the pipeline. You cut off the free supply. And you let her feel the cold you've been surviving in for months. And that's when the real cracks begin to show. There's this strange, almost electric moment that hits you after you've been emotionally gutted, after the silence, the coldness, the rejection. And then one day, you don't feel it anymore. That day came for me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't during some self-help book or standing on a mountaintop yelling, I'm free. Nah, it was a Tuesday morning. I woke up early like usual, made my coffee, walked Rocky, and while brushing my teeth, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized something simple but powerful. I felt good. Not just physically, but emotionally. Clear. Like I could breathe again. And I didn't realize it right away, but that's when I stopped being the guy who was begging to be loved and started being the guy who knew he was worth loving. Let me explain. Since I'd pulled back emotionally and financially, I had this newfound space in my life. Space I didn't even realize I was missing. And I started doing things for me. Not to impress anyone, not to win her back, but because I wanted to feel alive again. I changed my routines. Started waking up earlier, not because I had to, but because I liked the quiet before the world got loud. I'd sit on the back porch, sip my coffee, listen to some Chris Stapleton or Nathaniel Rateliff, and just be. No buzzing phone, no awkward silences with Tessa, no tension in the air. Just peace. That alone was worth more than anything I'd been begging her to give me. I joined a local gym, nothing fancy, just a warehouse-style place about 10 minutes from the house. I wasn't trying to get ripped or anything. I just wanted to move, sweat, feel strong again. And man, it worked. I dropped 12 pounds in 6 weeks. Got some muscle back. Started wearing clothes that actually fit right. Even my barber noticed. He's this older guy named Darnell, owns a little shop in Matthews. He looked at me and said, "Evan, you look 10 years younger, my man." I laughed, but it felt good. And here's where it gets wild. That energy, it showed. Not just in my body, but in the way I walked, the way I talked, the way I carried myself. And people responded. Strangers smile more. The woman at the bakery down the street, remember my name. The girl at the gym, Casey, started chatting with me between sets. She was smart, funny, divorced like me, raising a daughter, working 2 jobs, but still had this lightness in her. We talked about music, bad first dates, books we pretended to read. I wasn't rushing anything with her. I wasn't even sure what I wanted, but it felt good to be seen, to be listened to matter again. Meanwhile, back home, Tessa was unraveling slowly. She didn't say it out loud, not at first, but I could feel it. She'd start hovering around me more, asking little questions like, "Where you headed?" when I grabbed my keys. Or, "You've been dressing up a lot lately. Is that for work?" "Nah, sweetheart, this isn't for work. This is for me." She even tried cooking again, made this chicken Alfredo one night, just like she used to in our early years. Set the table, lit a candle. I walked in and said, "Smells good," then grabbed a plate and took it to the living room. She looked stunned, like, "Wait, aren't you going to sit with me?" But I wasn't playing the game anymore. She lost that privilege when she decided my love wasn't worth showing up for. And here's the part nobody talks about. When a man truly finds peace with being done, that's when he becomes magnetic. Not needy, not bitter, just grounded, calm, confident. I started taking better care of myself in every way. Read more, ate better, cut out the beer, took Rocky on longer walks, sometimes down to Freedom Park just to clear my head. I even went and got my teeth whitened. Not for Instagram, not for revenge, just because I was proud of myself again. And the more I grew, the more she shrank. Tessa started dressing up to sit in the living room. Started wearing perfume just to walk to the mailbox. Started pretending to scroll while side-eyeing me on the couch. She was scrambling, not because she loved me again, but because she couldn't stand that I had stopped loving her. And deep down, she knew. She knew the guy who once bent over backwards to make her happy. The one who planned romantic getaways, who paid for everything, who waited for affection like a kid waits for Christmas. He was gone, replaced by someone stronger, smarter, free. The day everything shifted publicly was at her cousin Jenna's birthday party. We went separately, technically still married, but barely functioning as a couple. I showed up in a black Henley, jeans that actually fit, and a fresh pair of Timberlands. Casey had texted me before I left. "You got this. Be unbothered." And I was. At the party, people kept coming up to me like, "Evan, man, you look good. What's going on with you?" I just smiled and said, "Just taking care of myself these days." Tessa saw. She heard. And she was pissed. Not because I embarrassed her. Not because I did anything wrong. But because the man she thought would always be waiting wasn't waiting anymore. On the drive home, she finally snapped. She said, "You've changed." I said, "Yeah, I have. You're colder now. Like you don't care." I looked at her for a second. then said, I spent a long time caring for both of us. And I'm tired. Now I just care for me. She didn't respond. Her eyes were glassy, but she wouldn't let herself cry. Pride. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Because finally, I realized I wasn't the broken one. I wasn't the weak one. I was the loyal one, the loving one, the one who kept showing up until there was no reason left to show up anymore. And now I was the prize. Not out of ego, not because I needed validation, but because I rebuilt myself brick by brick, and no one could take that from me again. You can always tell when someone realizes they're not in control anymore. Not because they say it, but because of how they start scrambling to fix things they never thought they'd need to fix. That's exactly what happened with Tessa. After months of giving me the cold shoulder, brushing off my affection, spending my money like water, and treating me like a ghost in my own home, she suddenly switched up. It was subtle at first. Little things. She started waking up early again. Not for work, not for anything productive, but just to be awake when I was. I'd be pouring my coffee in the kitchen, and she'd magically appear in a matching pajama set, hair tied up neat, offering a fake little smile. Morning, she'd say, and I'd respond with a simple, hey. Nothing else. No eye contact. No warmth. Just neutral. And it killed her. Because for years, I was the emotional thermostat in the house. If I was warm, she felt comfort. If I was down, she'd ignore it until I reset myself. But now that I was unbothered, she didn't know how to act. The control was slipping through her fingers, and the more calm I got, the more unhinged she started to become. One afternoon, she popped into the garage while I was organizing tools. You've been quiet lately, she said, leaning against the doorway like we were on good terms again. I nodded without looking up. Yeah. She waited a second, expecting me to follow that with something, an apology, maybe, or a question like, are we okay? But I just kept working. That was the first time I saw it in her eyes, the shift. That panic flicker of, wait a minute, did I lose him? A few days later, she took it up a notch. I came home from work, sweaty and beat from crawling around an attic for hours, and there she was in the kitchen making dinner. I hadn't seen her cook a real meal in months. She had candles lit, music playing, our old playlist, the one from when we used to road trip to Savannah. She turned around with a little smile and said, I made that shrimp linguine you like. I didn't say anything at first. Just walked past her, washed my hands, grabbed a plate. She waited for me to say something, anything, and finally asked, you okay? I looked at her and said, I'm fine. Then I ate in silence. Not because I was trying to be petty, not because I wanted revenge, but because I was done playing along. She tried again 2 nights later. Came into the living room while I was watching the Hornets game. You mind if I sit with you? She asked, already curling up beside me on the couch like it was normal. I didn't flinch, just said sure. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I didn't move. Then, out of nowhere, she tried to kiss me. Just like that. Months of coldness. Months of her rejecting every touch, every little bit of affection. And suddenly she wanted to pretend none of it happened. I turned my face slightly, and she ended up kissing my cheek instead. She pulled back and looked confused. What's going on with you? And I said, I could ask you the same thing. She blinked. You're acting like you don't even want me anymore. And for the first time, I gave her the truth. Because I don't. That hit her like a brick. She sat there frozen for a second, like she couldn't believe I had the nerve to say it out loud. But I meant it. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I wasn't trying to spark a fight. I was just telling her the truth that had been bubbling under the surface for a while now. She stood up, frustrated. So what? This is payback now. I looked at her and said no. This is what it looks like when someone finally values themselves. That was the moment she realized she had no more grip, and the panic started showing in waves. She began doing laundry, folding my shirts the way she used to. She cleaned out the garage without me asking. She even went out and bought me new cologne, said she thought of me when she saw it. I said thank you, but I didn't let it open any doors. Because that's what people do when they panic. They try to rebuild the bridge they burned, acting like the fire didn't leave scars. The big one came the following weekend. I was heading out to meet a few friends for drinks. Ray, Marcus, and a couple other guys. Nothing wild. Just guys talking trash and decompressing. Tessa stood by the door as I got ready, watching me put on my boots. Are you going out? She asked, like she didn't already know. Yep. Who with? I grabbed my wallet. Some old friends. You didn't ask if I wanted to come. I paused for a second, then said, You haven't wanted to come with me anywhere in over a year. Why would I start asking now? Her face dropped. She didn't say anything, but her eyes said everything. She wasn't used to this version of me. She wasn't ready for the man who no longer needed her permission. That night, she called me twice. I didn't answer. When I got home, she was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, fake calm. Everything good? I asked. She nodded. Yep. Just wondering where you went. I told you, I said. Out. She stared at me for a second and then said the words I'd been waiting for. I don't like how distant you've become. And I finally said what had been sitting in my chest for months. Now you know how it felt to be married to you. She didn't respond. She just looked at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was, because the version of me she'd gotten used to was gone. Dead and buried under months of rejection and silence. Now she was the one chasing, the one wondering, the one asking where I was going, what I was doing, who I was talking to. She used to be so sure she could get me back with a few nice words and a plate of pasta. But now she was dealing with the reality that love doesn't stay when respect disappears. And the scariest part for her wasn't that I was mad. It wasn't that I was yelling or throwing ultimatums. It was the fact that I was calm, silent, unbothered. Because when a man gets to that level of peace, the game's over. There comes a moment in every broken relationship where the silence isn't enough anymore, where the distance has done its job, but the words still need to be said. Not to argue, not to guilt trip, but just to speak the truth out loud, so both people finally stop pretending. That moment came on a Sunday afternoon. It had been building for weeks. Tessa had been trying everything. Cooking, being present, even acting like she was interested in my day. But I could tell it wasn't coming from the heart. It was coming from fear, from panic, from the realization that I had finally stopped orbiting around her like a loyal moon. I'd been quiet, calm, focused, and that silence had become loud for her. You could see it in the way she looked at me, almost waiting for a crack, waiting for the old Evan to come back, the one who chased, the one who forgave everything, the one who needed her. But that Evan was gone, and it was time I told her. She was sitting in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to care. That fake nonchalant thing she always did. But I could feel the tension. I'd been feeling it all week. I was done dragging it out. I pulled out a chair, sat down across from her, and said, We need to talk. She looked up, guarded. About what? I took a breath. No anger, no edge, just truth. About us. Or what's left of us. She set her phone down slowly, like she already knew where it was going. I'm listening, she said, and I nodded. Look, Tessa, I'm not angry. I'm not here to yell. I just need you to understand something, and I need to say it clearly. You didn't lose me recently. This didn't happen overnight. You lost me a long time ago. She didn't say anything. Just sat there, arms crossed, eyes on mine. Defensive. I continued. I spent months, trying to figure out what was happening. Wondering what I did wrong. Trying to fix things that you weren't even interested in fixing. I planned weekends, cooked dinners, left notes on your mirror, texted you during the day just to remind you I was thinking about you. She blinked, but didn't look away. And in return, you gave me distance, coldness, silence. You rejected every effort like it was some chore. I begged for connection, and you made me feel like I was asking for too much just to be kissed goodbye. Still no response. Just a clenched jaw. I leaned forward a little. And I get it now. I do. You weren't in it anymore. You had already clocked out. Emotionally, mentally. But instead of ending it, you just let me rot. Let me suffer in a home that felt more like a waiting room than a marriage. She finally spoke. Quietly. I didn't mean for it to get that bad. I nodded. But it did. And you didn't stop it. You let it keep going until I broke. I could see her start to shift, like she wanted to argue, but I kept going. And now that I've pulled back, now that I stopped trying to fix everything, now that I stopped funding the comfort, stopped begging, stopped being the emotional ATM you could swipe whenever you wanted, now you care. Now you want to sit close. Cook dinner. Pretend we're okay. She looked down at the table. I've been trying, Evan. You're not even giving me a chance now. I looked at her with nothing but honesty in my voice. I gave you 100 chances. You didn't take any of them. I begged for affection and got brushed off like I was asking for a favor. You were done with me, and now you're just scared to lose the comfort I provided. That stung. I could see it. Her eyes went red. Her mouth opened like she had a comeback, but it didn't land. You don't want me back, Tessa, I said gently. You want the version of me who kept things together while you floated around in detachment. You miss the control, the security. You miss not having to work for someone's love. She finally snapped. That's not fair. I loved you. I looked at her dead in the eyes. No, you love being loved by me. There's a difference. Silence. The kind that shakes the walls. And then I kept going, not to hurt her, but to free myself. You lost me the night you rolled over in bed and said nothing when I told you I felt alone. You lost me the morning you pulled away from a kiss like it was a chore. You lost me every time you laughed at your phone but ignored my presence. You lost me when I still wanted you. She put her hands to her face, started crying, real tears, but I didn't comfort her. Not because I was being cruel, but because I had comforted her for years. And now, she had to sit in her own silence for once. I don't hate you, I said softly, but I don't love you the way I used to. Not because I don't have a heart, but because you stepped on it until it stopped beating for you. She wiped her eyes. So what happens now? And I shrugged, not with coldness, but with resolution. I move on. I build something real for myself. Maybe with someone who actually wants to give back what I offer. Maybe not. But either way, I'm not staying here pretending we're okay. You're really done? I looked at her. I was done the moment I realized my silence meant more to you than my words ever did. She didn't follow me when I got up. Didn't beg. Didn't scream. She just sat there, in that same kitchen where I had once made her pancakes every Sunday morning. Only this time, she was the one being served, a truth she never thought she'd hear. That the man who loved her more than anything finally loved himself more. You'd think when a relationship ends, it explodes, right? Big fight, doors slammed, suitcases tossed in the yard. One of those full-blown, movie scene breakups. But real life ends in quiet. In empty coffee mugs on the counter. In folded laundry you stop noticing. In routines that just stop feeling like us and start feeling like me. That's how Tessa and I ended. Not with a bang, but with a breath. After I told her the truth, that she lost me long before she realized, everything slowed down. She didn't beg. She didn't scream. She just sat there in that chair at the kitchen table with mascara running and both hands covering her face. Like she wanted to disappear. And I didn't try to save her, because I had spent years saving someone who didn't want to be saved. The next few days were awkward. We were still technically under the same roof, but everything felt temporary. The house, the rooms, even the air between us. Like the walls were waiting for the final decision. I found a short-term rental a few miles away. Small place, clean, quiet, with a backyard for Rocky. Signed the lease, packed up 3 duffel bags, my tools, and a few essentials. That was it. No drawn-out explanations. No dramatic speech. I just left the key on the kitchen counter and walked out the front door. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel heavy. I felt light. I felt mine again. Funny thing is, you don't realize how drained you've been until you finally get away from the source. That silence you once hated, it becomes peace. That loneliness, it turns into clarity. I started sleeping better, waking up clear-headed, laughing more, eating food I actually liked, not whatever was trendy on Pinterest. I started cooking again, nothing fancy, just steak, roasted veggies, cold beer on the side. I texted my mom more, reconnected with my brother, even went fishing one weekend with an old friend from high school who thought I had fallen off the face of the earth. Turns out I kind of had, but now I was coming back. The best part? I wasn't rushing anything. I wasn't out there trying to upgrade or prove something. I was just living, healing, building a life that felt like mine, not when I had to shrink inside just to make someone else comfortable. But Tessa, she didn't take it well. At first, she tried to stay silent, like she still had the upper hand. But I could tell she was spiraling underneath it all. A few days after I left, I got my first text from her. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry For everything. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because some apologies only come when someone realizes they lost their supply. The comfort, the backup plan. And I wasn't going to be that again. Then came the second message. I miss you. Can we talk sometime? Still, I said nothing. The third message was the one that really hit me. I didn't realize what I had. I was stupid. You were everything. Please just give me a chance to make it right. And for a second, I'll admit, my chest tightened. Because yeah, I had loved her. Deeply. And there was a version of me that would have given anything to hear those words just a year earlier. But now those words came too late. And when love shows up late, it's not love anymore. It's just guilt with good timing. She tried calling after that. Late-night missed calls. Voicemails with soft voices, trembling tones, begging for just one more talk. But I had nothing left to give her. Not out of hate. Out of peace. And peace doesn't entertain chaos, even if it shows up with flowers and regret. One afternoon, I went back to the house just to grab a few old tools I'd forgotten in the garage. She wasn't expecting me. I knocked, walked in, and the house felt colder than ever. Same walls, same furniture, but no life. Tessa came out from the hallway, wearing a hoodie I hadn't seen in years, one of mine. Face bare, hair messy, like she hadn't been sleeping much. She froze when she saw me. "Hey," she said softly. "Just grabbing a few things," I replied, not even stepping past the kitchen. She nodded, arms crossed, like she was holding herself together. "I've been thinking a lot," she said. "I know you probably don't care anymore, but I'd do anything to fix this." I looked at her, and I could see it, the realness, the actual regret, the weight of everything she threw away. But I wasn't there for revenge. I wasn't there to hurt her. I just gave her the one thing she had refused to give me for so long: honesty. "I'm glad you see it now," I said, "but I already built a life without you in it." She nodded slowly, tried to hold back tears, but I could tell the reality had finally landed, that I wasn't angry. I was just gone. And that's what hurts more than anything for someone who always thought you'd stay no matter what. When they finally see that you're not mad, you're just done. I grabbed my toolbox, gave Rocky one last "let's go," and walked out without looking back. That was the last time I saw her in person. She still texts sometimes, every few weeks, usually late at night, usually one-liners like, "I miss you. I saw your truck the other day. I hope you're happy." And I am. I really am. Casey, the woman from the gym, and I reconnected slowly, naturally. No pressure, just two grown people figuring things out. We're not rushing anything, but there's laughter, conversations that go deep, respect, kindness. And the best part? When she looks at me, she sees me. Not the provider, not the fixer, not the backup plan. Me. These days, I wake up in a bed I picked, in a home I built, with peace in my chest and no regret in my bones. That's my victory. No revenge plot. No toxic back and forth. No dramatic scenes. Just peace. The kind you only get when you stop fighting for someone who stopped choosing you and start choosing yourself instead. So if you're sitting in a cold relationship wondering when it'll change, hear this. Sometimes the real win isn't getting them back. It's walking away so far they can't reach you, and realizing they never deserved to hold you that close in the first place. That's what happened to me. That's how I won. Quietly. Fully. Finally.